Alright, we're gonna go over gear real quickly and we're just gonna jump into it. I think a lot of you guys will already have this down pretty well, but it's good just to kind of reiterate and go over. So for mixed, this is a pretty decent set. What you can change, if we go with our main hand, the Skull Crusher is significantly better than the Frostwing Greatsword. The difference is a lot more expensive, generally speaking. It takes 9 ultra rares to get it up, as the Frostwing Greatsword only takes 4, and these are a lot easier to get than the Mutated Brains, in my opinion. So, if you can do the Skull Crusher, do the Skull Crusher. If not, the Frostwing Greatsword is also really good. So that's for main hands. One more thing I actually want to talk about real quick. So the 13% army attack, right? When it comes to a mix set, you want to look at that 13% army stats as 39% essentially, right? You want to times it by 3 because that's giving you 13% infantry, 13% range, and 13% cavalry stats. So when you're comparing the stats, take army attack, count it as times 3 for a mix set. Now, if you're just using it in your range set, for example, then it's only 13% attack because infantry and cavalry stats are irrelevant if you're just attacking with range. So that's kind of that perspective to use for that. And that's what makes it so good. It makes the Skull Crusher really good. Now, for your offhand, you either want to do Eternal Codex or Mitts. In general, if you have them both at the same level, you still want to use Mitts. The max HP is really good here, and just across the community, you see Mitts used a lot more in mix. It's just more valuable to have that HP than the extra stat buffs from the Eternal Codex, but both are great. You can really kind of interchange them however you want. Now, we will go over to the accessories. If you can do 3 cups, that's amazing. 3 cups is as good as it gets. If you only got 2 cups, then you do, a cup, and a blight ring is pretty good. Or if you only have 1 cup, you could do a cup, a blight ring, and a burning scroll even is pretty good. What you want to try to avoid as much as possible is putting a terror vial or a fear drum in here, because they just don't benefit you as much if they're only one troop type. They might have a lot of cavalry stats, for example, when it comes to the fear drum, but it's not beneficial enough compared to the army max HP that the blight ring gives me and a couple other stats it'll give me. So you really want to avoid one or single troop type gear for your mix set. So again, 3 cups. If you only have 2, do 2 cups and a blight ring. If you only have 1 cup, do a cup, a blight ring, and a burning scroll. That works pretty well. Now for your boots, storm tassets are really good. The dragon talons are also really good. They give you a little more army max HP, but both of these are great. Storm tassets are kind of like the Skull Crusher and the Frostwing Greatsword main hands, where the storm tassets cost more. They are better. They do cost more though. So again, it's kind of interchangeable. And so with that, we'll go over to the firewall plate. The firewall plate's pretty uncontested for armor. There's not really any other rivals to it other than champ gear. So firewall plate is kind of a no-brainer, and it's also really good for all of your sets. So I would definitely focus on the firewall plate. Now for your helmets, the beast helmet and the bumble helm are also pretty similar, but the bumble helm is a little bit better. So if you have them at the same level, go with bumble helm. If you have the beast helm higher by a tier, go with that. Again, kind of compare that sort of thing and see what works best for you. Now we'll go over to infantry. For infantry, there's some options here. So for instance, a terror lash, which I don't have, but a terror lash is the best you can do for infantry, pretty much. It gives a ton of infantry stats, but the thing you have to really consider here is, and the same thing with the terror shield, the terror vials, all of that, right? If you don't have cups, for example, and you want to do terror vials, or if you just want to have a really strong armor and you want to go with terror shield, right? You don't want to build all of these things at once because they all use the same ultra rare. So if you start building them all at once, it's going to take you forever to get them all up. So that's why you maybe use the firewall plate for your infantry set, because it's still really good. It's not as good as the terror shield, but it's still pretty good. So use the firewall plate for your armor in your infantry set, and maybe focus on the terror lash or the terror vial. or kind of interchange that stuff to figure out what works best. But you don't want to make a whole set, even if it's the best that you can get. If you can't afford to get them all to gold or mythic or whatever you're aiming for at the same time, then it's just not worth it. You work on them one at a time. So get those Terror Vials or get that Terror Lash Max, and then you can start working on that Terror Shield. And once it gets better than your Firewall Plate, switch them out. But you don't want to start them all at once. So where were we? So Terror Lash is really good. The Frostwing Greatsword is also, again, great for infantry. That's your main hands. Now, for your offhand, mids are pretty uncontested. Again, if you want to do a specific infantry blast piece of, what's it called, gear, the Mecha Trojan set, the Malicious Saw, is really, really good for infantry. But again, you can see the Firewall Plate. If you build this Malicious Saw, you're going to be taking away those ultra rares from your Firewall Plate. So unless you have this max, it's not worth starting the Malicious Saw or the Vital Switchblade or anything else necessarily. So that's that. Again, you want the best you can get. Malicious Saw is the best you can get for infantry. Otherwise, Winter Mitts are great. You really can't lose with them. Now for your accessories, the Ambrosial Cups are as good as it gets. Once again, they're amazing for range, they're amazing for infantry, and they're amazing for mix. So they're also the most expensive, pretty much. It doesn't get much more expensive. But again, that's why they're so good. So if you got 3 cups, slap 3 cups in here. If you got 2 cups, put a Terror Vial and 2 cups in. You got 1 cup, put that cup in there and 2 Terror Vials, and you'll be good. If you don't have cups, or you kind of can measure it and weigh what's better and what's worse, 3 Terror Vials is great, even. Terror Vials are just really, really good in general. So it's pretty interchangeable here on the accessories. Now for your boots, Storm Tests are really, as good as it gets, like I keep saying. If you got Storm Tests, go with them. The reason I use Dragon Talons is because I have so little infantry jewels that, of course, I want to put my infantry jewel in my Dragon's Talon, because for mix, I want to have the best mix that I can have. So I prioritize that and then build my other spears off of that, because at the end of the day, I'd rather save or win or cap a rally, for instance, on defense with my good mix set over and sacrifice some infantry stats than I would the other way around. So I prefer to use my Dragon's Talon simply because I have the gold infantry jewel in there, and it's more valuable to me to have it there than it is in my infantry set with Storm Tassets. So both are great. Storm Tassets, if you have them, are better. Firewall Plate, again, pretty uncontested. The Terror Shield is a lot better, but it's expensive, and it uses those seeds. So you just gotta weigh it and figure out what works best for you. But Firewall Plate is great, and it works for mixed, it works for infantry, it works for cavalry, it works for range. Um, it's just a really, really good piece of gear in general. Let's see here. We'll go over to the helmets. The Beast Helm is pretty uncontested here. Now, you can't really use the Bumble Helm because it's only got cavalry and range, and you can't use the 1-1 Cornet because it's only got range. So Beast Helm is what you want to go with for infantry. Now, if we go for range, this is what we're looking at. The Skull Crusher is really good. Even the Frostwing Greatsword is pretty decent here for range, but Skull Crusher is the best you can do. The Eternal Codex is better than the mitts. Eternal Codex is better for range and cavalry over the mitts. So go with that if you got it. Now you could do 3 Blight Rings if you really like. Again, with infantry, cups are the best you can do. So it's the same concept with the infantry and the Terror Vials. If you got 3 cups, use 3 cups. If you got 2 cups, use 2 cups and a Blight Ring. If you got 1 cup, use a cup and 2 Blight Rings. So that sort of thing. If you got 0 cups, 3 Blight Rings is good. That's kind of the take on accessories for range. Now for the boots, the Dragon's Talons, are by far the best. This doesn't provide any ranged attack or stats in general. So the Dragon Talons is what you want to go with for range for sure. Firewall Plate is also good. Now if we look in the equipment here, there are some other options, I believe. The hardened carapace is also pretty good. You hate to kind of use a level 55 piece of gear, but the hardened carapace is pretty good for range, and that's really all you got otherwise. But again, if you build this, you're taking away these queen venoms you could use for your bumble helm. So you got to figure out what works best for you. But I use the firewall plate and I do great with it and I enjoy it. Now, and also again with the jewels, I got my range jewel in here that's gold because of using this in my mix set. So it makes this a lot stronger for range. My only range attack right here is really my jewel, but I got the army max HP as well, which is really beneficial. So it works out because I don't have other range jewels to put. If I build that hardened carapace, I don't. Not only would it take away from my bumble helm and make it harder for it to get this up, but I wouldn't even have the jewels to really make it worth it necessarily. So the wormbone coronet is also the best for your helmet. The bumble helm is also great, but again, the wormbone coronet. So the bumble helm, for example, is in my mix set. So I have all mixed jewels. I have infantry and a cavalry jewel in here. The wormbone coronet, I can put a worm jewel in here. I can put a grim jewel in here. I got 2 extra slots now because this is only used for my range. So if I have enough jewels for that, then it's much more efficient to use a different piece of gear and put those extra jewels in here that are specific to that troop type. Um, so that's kind of the range set. That's really all there is to it. Now, if we go to cavalry, again, I use the Frostwing Greatsword. What's also really good in general, if you just want to look at the best cavalry set, you can kind of go down to the Gargantuan set here. These are the best boots. This is the best main hand. These are the best accessories. The only thing is the offhand, which is, where is the offhand? Right here. This is the best offhand. But if we look at the cavalry set, that cavalry off or main hand, I mean, is the best. The horn cudgel or whatever it's called is the best, but you're using the gargantuan eyes. So that whole cavalry set there that's under the gargantua or gargantuan or whatever it's called, they all use the gargantuan eyes. So you got to use, 3 or what's it? You have to use 2 gold eyes or 3, I guess, give or take, to get this to mythic fully. So that includes getting to gold and all that. So 1 eye per drum to get these to mythic, right? And you gotta use, I think it's 8 eyes to get the boots to mythic or per stage, and then I think it's 3 to get the horn cudgel or whatever the main hand is. So that's a lot and a lot of gargantuan eyes. So that's why it's good to have different types of monsters, or whatever it's called, ultra rares, go into your set. Otherwise, you're gonna get saturated and you're not gonna be able to build it all up and make it all strong. But in the perfect world, you can do all of that. I'm not in the perfect world, so this is what I work with. I use the Frostwing Greatsword here, and it does great. For offhand, again, the Eternal Codex is pretty good. Now, if you want to do one better, like I showed right here, nope, I did it again. The Dragon's Fist is very, very good, but once again, you're going to be using these glowing eyes, which are really, really valuable in your Dragon's Talon. And this is a mixed thing, so if you prioritize your mix, then you'd want to go with the Dragon's Talon until that's mythic or at least gold before you start working on the fist here. So the Eternal Codex does great. That's what I use, of course. And there's that. Now the accessories, it's kind of a no-brainer. The Fear Drums is really all you got, unless you're going with a champion. Fear Drums are great. You can't really lose with them. Now there are the newer monsters, which I'm very, very unfamiliar with, but they probably have some good options here. I know they have some for sure, but just keep that in mind. I don't know much about the new monsters. I haven't looked into them much because I don't have enough ultra rares, quite frankly, to really make it, worth even looking at. I won't be able to build anything that will get close to the same level. So Fear Drums, you really can't lose with them. Go with them. Now for the boots, Storm Tassets are really good. Again, the Gargantuan Belt is the best you can do, but again, you're also using those eyes. So the belt is the best you can do for Cav, but the Storm Tassets are great as well. Now for the armor, Firewall Plate's really good. Once again, And then the Bumble Helm is also really good for cav and range, but specifically for this, cavalry. So that's kind of the breakdown. Now for your speed gear, I guess we can go into that a little bit. Um, it's real simple. I mean, you just put in here what gives you the best speed. I'm sure there's better stuff to put in here. I just don't know what. Actually, might not be anything, but you know, you got your electric lance, it gives you some speed boost. You have your ivory chokers. There's nothing better than them other than maybe champ gear. I don't even know. But ivory chokers for your accessories. Your beast helm gives you a lot of travel speed. You got the predator's pauldrons, which give you travel speed. Now, this I didn't build these myself. I of course acquired this account after the fact, but I would have never built these until I had my beast helm at least to gold. Because again, I just wasted what? It's just 2 brains, but that's 2 gold brains I could have had for my beast helm and made it that much closer to being gold. Anyways, you also got the champ boots. You can build with those brains. You can build, similar things to these out of that saber fang set that would give you a good speed boost. But where is that at? I missed it. I missed it again. Right here. The untamed boots give you that travel speed. And the Ripper Claw actually is what you'd use for your offhand here. So really, just look at this and build this here, other than the main hand, which you use electric lance for. That's kind of your speed gear. Everything else is pretty self-explanatory. But that's my take on gear and what you should use. And just one more thing I want to throw in here real quick. I don't know. I got some. So look. So if I heal right now, right, it's gonna take me 8 hours and 28 minutes and 48 seconds. Okay. If I put on, this gives me training speed, barely any, but it gives me some, right? Training speed and training speed. It goes down, not a whole lot, but it goes down, what, 35 minutes, give or take? So training speed does affect your healing speed. So if I were to switch talents, which I'm not going to do because I'm cheap, but I could switch into talents here, and I would be saving a lot of speed ups when I heal my troops. So it's just something interesting to throw in there. But that's my take on gear. So do with that what you will.